Okay, Joanne, over to you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Just a couple of housekeeping rules quickly. If everybody could please mute their devices and take themselves off camera during the presentation. Today we have Nancy Knudsen. She's a functional medicine certified health coach at New Day Whole Health. And about 7 years ago, how she started this is she saw a huge shift in about 7 years ago when she dug deeper into the knowledge she already had of essential oils. She studied with the Essential Oil Institute. Through much research and much trial and error, she came up with blends that worked for healing her gut, balancing her mood, her hormones, and healing her pain. In addition to this, she was getting great results with her clients by recommending essential oils. Nancy, I'm going to go ahead and send it over to you.
All right. Thank you for that. I will just add a little bit to that. So I also studied with the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Prior to that, that was about 11 years ago. And then after I studied with the Institute for Integrated Nutrition, I studied with the Institute for Functional Medicine, Dr. Mark Hyman. Many of you probably know who he is. So I did that program as well. And then the Essential Oil Institute was kind of my last thing after those two things that I did. And prior to that, 15 years ago, I had a ton of health issues. So I was at that time struggling with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, chronic pain. I had bone on bone discs in my back. So every day was just a challenge. I'd go to bed at night crying because everything in my body hurt. I was suffering from depression because, as many of you probably know, when you struggle chronically for years and years, and I had been for 20 years at that point, struggling with chronic health issues, it gets to be very depressing. So I was having multiple sclerosis symptoms. My dad was diagnosed with MS when he was 35. My sister also was diagnosed with MS when she was about 30. And so I was having those symptoms also. I was never diagnosed with MS, but that was one of my things as well. Had been bitten as a kid by ticks several times, had the red bullseye rash, had mono as a teenager, which very often translates into the whole chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. Had childhood trauma. My mom died when I was 10 of a heart attack, sadly. And so I think the compounding of all of those different things so often plays into just the chronic, whether it's been diagnosed with Lyme or we've been diagnosed with whatever it is. There's so many different things I think that we could be diagnosed with or not diagnosed with. And all of these factors sometimes compound. But I have hope for all of you, and I'm glad that you're here today. Just we can be better. I think just my life is proof of we can be so much better. And I remember even as a kid hating to go to school because I didn't feel very well, even as a kid, struggling with headaches and stomach aches. And I was hospitalized at age 7 for a week, and they never really did figure out what was wrong with me. But I kind of wonder if maybe because I know it was summer. I remember it being summer because I wasn't missing school, which was probably a bummer part for me. I was like, I could at least be missing school right now. But it was summer, and I remember laying on the couch for like a month and just feeling so lethargic, really. I just remember feeling really very lethargic. And then my parents finally took me to the hospital, and they kept me for a week. And they never diagnosed me with anything. They didn't figure out what was wrong. They put me on a lot of antibiotics. I think they were giving me daily injections of antibiotics. I just remember having a really sore backside from all the shots. But I often always wonder, like, was that from a tick bite? And like I said, I remember being bit several times. And the thing is too, is most people don't realize it, but it's not just ticks that transfer Lyme. And what my doctor told me was that 90% of us are exposed to Lyme, because it's not just by ticks, it's mosquitoes, it's bodily fluids, it's so many ways than just the tick bites. So, and again, I think it's so much of these other factors that we have, because 90% of the people aren't dealing with the issues that we are dealing with, right? But it is a lot of times that compounding of what other viruses have we had. A lot of times that
another one or no? Oh, you do have one.
If we can all just make sure that our microphones are off. I think someone's microphone is on. Can you all hear me okay still? Okay. Sorry. And I get distracted easily when that happens. So where was I going with that? A lot of times it's not just that one thing, but it's the other things that come up. And these viruses, whether it's viruses, parasites, bacterias, molds, fungus, all these things live inside of us, right? And they're not going to just go away, but we can alter the behavior of them. And it's when we have stress in our life, it's when we have, we're not taking good care of ourselves, we're not eating right, we're not getting sunshine, we're not, exercising, all those pieces that help to keep us strong. When we're not putting those things in place, that we can be hit and have a flare up of our symptoms. So my hope for you all is just to have hope in that, and to know, yes, it won't go away. But we can alter the behavior of those microbes that live inside of us. So, I think I'll start with like some of the things that really helped me to change the behavior of those microbes. One, eating clean, right? So I have you can jump on my website after we're done today, newdaywholehealth.com. I have tons of free resources for you guys on there, but this is my Eat to Live lifestyle sheet. And I know a lot of you are probably eating really great already. And sometimes people are eating too great. And what I mean by that is we're being too restrictive on our diet sometimes. And I've been there and done that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too. But eating clean, just ditching the processed packaged foods. And this is a nice little one-page document that I've put together and I've used for years and years and years with my clients. I've been doing what I do for more than a decade, working as a functional medicine certified health coach. So just looking at this sheet, the things in red, don't drink the tap water, don't eat the packaged processed garbage, eat real whole foods, do organic as much as you can. The section in yellow here in the middle. So the section in red, the things that we want to avoid. The section in yellow, the things that we want to be careful of when we're trying to heal our gut. And then the things in green, the foods that we want to focus on, real whole foods. Again, I don't get caught up in vegetarian or paleo or whatever. And I did a lot of those super strict diets for a long time. And I found that the more careful I was, actually, the more sick I was becoming. So part of that for me was going down this path of functional medicine and doing a lot of testing and retesting, and it was super expensive. And for me, I was pursuing my career at that time. This was about 10 years ago. I was pursuing my career in functional medicine. So I wanted to figure out like how to make this work. How do I run all these tests and do all these things and take all these supplements? And I just was getting worse to the point where I was like, I need to bag this whole where I'm going with this because it's not working. And so I finally came to the point where I was like, okay, there's got to be simpler ways. There's got to be better solutions for simple solutions for better health. And that was really what drove me to do what I do. And at that time also, I functional medicine had gotten me to the point where I was eating clean. I was feeling a lot better, just by eating clean organic. But I kept having the same flare-ups, the same things that I would, yeast, candida, mold, those symptoms just kept flaring up from time to time. And I was like, it can't be right. And so that was my curiosity with the whole essential oil piece, was because I just had something was driving in me to go down that path, because I had used essential oils for 25 years with my kids, for a cold or a flu or whatever I'd had certain ones that I used, but not to the extent that I do now. And I didn't know the things then. And at that time too, so many people 10 years ago were getting into the whole essential oil thing and ingesting them. Don't do that, you guys. It's such a bad idea, and it will throw off your microbiome even more, probably make you even way more sick. So don't ingest essential oils, please. But I started researching and figuring out and putting my own blends together so that I could stop this constant fermenting that I had in my gut. And I think a lot of us don't realize it, but that is what is going on. Let me talk about that piece just a little bit. So this is a diagram of the small intestine. And we talk about this a lot in functional medicine, okay? So what you have here is these little bumpies are your villi and your microvilli, okay? Your villi and your microvilli should be light and flowy and absorb the nutrition out of your food as your food passes through. But what happens when we're eating the standard American diet, gluten, which is really hard to digest, and I'm not totally against gluten. Like, I've figured out how to get better forms of gluten back in my life, which has been amazing. Sourdough breads, sprouted grains, things like that can be way more. And that's what traditional cultures used, not the white, fluffy, processed garbage that most of us have been eating for most of our lives. So what happens in the small intestine is those foods that are hard to digest, those parasites, those molds, those funguses, those yeast, medications that we're taking. What happens is these villi and microvilli start to get matted down and crushed like an old carpet. Our food starts to pass through. We're not getting the nutrition that we need out of our food. We're becoming nutrient deficient, which in itself causes disease. A lot of, vitamin D deficiency, almost always tied to any kind of autoimmune or any condition that we have going on. If this goes on long enough, you'll see on the left-hand side here, I don't know, it might be on your right side. My apologies for which side. But on this side of the diagram, when we begin to start having this pulling apart of the lining of the small intestine, we call that in functional medicine leaky gut, or we'll call it autoimmune. And functional medicine would say any disease that is chronic and degenerative is autoimmune. So whether it's cancer, it's diabetes, heart disease, acne, allergies, asthma, Lyme disease, whatever it is, we look at it all as leaky gut. It's that pulling apart of the lining of the small intestine. It's those food particles exiting out. So how do we undo what has been going on for our health? And it's not that hard, you guys. I mean, it can be tricky, but it's doable for sure. Number one key place to start is to start eating cleaner. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your diet does not have to be perfect. My diet is not perfect. My health is not perfect, but it is so much better than when I was eating what I was eating 15 years ago. And I grew up on a farm. I love to cook. My parents loved to cook. They had huge gardens. But when you don't know that milk is almost impossible to digest, sugar feeds all that bad bacteria, gluten, processed white flour, terribly mats down the small intestine, and you eat those things every day, yeah, you are not going to feel good ever, probably. So cleaning up the diet, starting doing better. Start on this piece today, you guys. When I came home, when I realized 12 years ago, and I actually started with a chiropractor who helped me figure out food sensitivities. I came home, and I'm not recommending that everybody do this. Maybe you're in this place and you want to do this. And if you're not, then don't do this. But I came home and I cleaned house, man. I opened up my fridge, I opened up my cabinets, and I had trash bags, 3 big trash bags full of food that I threw away. Anything that had corn in it, because most of the corn that I had wasn't organic, and all that genetically modified stuff is very damaging to the gut as well. So anything that had corn in it, because I was having a corn sensitivity, gluten, sugar, dairy, I threw it all away and I started over. And that was hard. It was a hard time of my life. And again, I don't recommend, don't do that unless you're ready and that's where you're at. I don't recommend people go that extreme. But yeah, you start cleaning up your diet. And every time you go to the grocery store from here on out, don't buy the crap. It's just not worth it. And as the farther you go along your health journey, the easier it is to eat clean. And there's going to be sacrifice, right? And anything that's worthwhile is worth sacrificing for. And I think knowing that your health can go from where it is today, where my health was 15 years ago, of having chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, pain on, bone on bone, disc in my back, chronic pain, chronic infections. I didn't talk about that. I had sinus infections, bladder infections, yeast infections constantly. MS symptoms. Wherever you are with your health, you can be so much better, you guys. And if you're stuck in a place where you've been like this for a long time and you're eating really clean, I hope that you will be encouraged today too, because I'm hoping that you'll learn some things that will change that too. Okay, so talked about eating clean. Again, this is on my website. This diagram is on my website. Go to the resource page, newdaywholehealth.com, the resource page. I've got tons of free resources on there. I've got a great virtual grocery store tour on there where I have pictures of, here's some higher quality dairy. And why do we not just drink the milk? And why is yogurt different than milk? And just a lot of good food information. Here's a picture of meat and fish and why we should choose grass-fed, pasture-raised, wild-caught, all those different things. So I don't know how much I'm going over the top of some of you. And where you're at with diet and all of that. But again, don't get overwhelmed by the diet piece. Start where you are and with wherever you're motivated to move forward. And even if that's just a small piece, I often tell people we're on this spiral down with our health, so many of us, right? And if we can just turn that spiral back around, even if it's just a little thing right now, even if it's just, I'm going to figure out how to get clean water. I'm going to buy a good water filter purification system to put on my sink, and I'm going to have clean water. If that's where you're going to start, then awesome. Start there and feel good about that and know, like, I am making a good choice. Maybe it's the food piece. Maybe it's, I'm going to cut sugar, or I'm going to whatever, wherever you are. But do that thing and feel good about it and know that your thoughts are so powerful. Our thoughts can change so much of our outcome of what we have going on for our health. So, all right. So there's that. I'm going to open it up now. I'm going to see what time it is. I have no idea. 20 minutes I've been talking. I never have any idea how long it's been. I want to open it up and just say what questions do you have so far? Because I don't want to go too more. So I don't know how you all do this. Like, do they type in the questions
Yes, and I put that in the chat for everybody. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and Jody and I will filter those and read those to Nancy.
Perfect. So while we're gathering some questions, I want to tell you guys about something that really improved my outcomes, and I hope that you guys try this out. So acupressure. Acupressure is the same premise as acupuncture, and there's been tons of research around acupressure. And the amazing thing about acupressure is it is something that you can do on yourself. And so it's free, right? And why would we not try something that's free? And this, so my kids were also really sick 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And my 9-year-old at the time would beg me to take her to the chiropractor and acupuncture. So of course I would take her, like, if it's going to help her, because she was so not doing well. 4th grade year, she missed 10 weeks of school, 4th grade year. She was having abdominal issues. She was having strep throat all the time, like constant strep throat, just sick all the time. I'd get her better, send her back to school for 3 days. She'd be sick again. And I was like, oh, what is going on? Then she started having stomach stuff all the time. And I was like, this seems like it's her gallbladder. 9 years old. And I'm thinking she was having the same symptoms. And I had a stone stuck in my common bile duct when I was 22, 23, large stone. They couldn't get it out. Took them 4 days, 3 procedures, 3 surgeries to get the stone. They took my gallbladder. So there's that too. And like, I was looking at this child, 9 years old, and I'm thinking, her just something going on with her gallbladder. And so I took her, had that checked. At first they said no, and then they did a HIDA scan and they said, yep, it's her gallbladder. And they advised me, her gallbladder is malfunctioning. It's going to continue to malfunction. You need to take it out. Which I was like, I can't do that. This doesn't seem right. But yet I couldn't get her better. And I took her back to the pediatrician. I said, I think maybe she is gluten intolerant. Maybe she's celiac. He did the test, came back. He said, no, she's not celiac. So this is 12 years ago, right? We didn't have a lot of, I just feel like people weren't as educated then about celiac and gluten intolerance at that time as we are now. But it made me go like, okay, well, it's not that. So then what is it? So then searching down for the next thing. And that was where that chiropractor came in a few months later, who was like, yeah, you can have severe food sensitivities and not be celiac. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that was after the point where they took her gallbladder out. They had taken her gallbladder out and she still was not better. She was still very sick, still getting strep throat and all that, still having stomach issues. And then I had someone who came to us and said, I think we can help. I know someone who can help your daughter. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm like searching, praying, asking for answers. So they introduced us to this acupressure technique. And as soon as I took her to do that, she was like, done with the needles, do this, the acupressure, because it helped her so much more even than what the acupuncture did. So I studied the acupressure as well. And so that was something that I want to share with you guys today, because I think that it is something, especially when we have chronic and a lot of stuff, and we have Herkzheimer reactions. Do y'all know about Herkzheimer reactions? Give me a yes or a no. Yes. Okay, good. So for those of you who don't, Herkzheimer reaction is basically you get worse before you get better. You're trying to do certain things, killing off bad bacteria, molds, fungus, yeast, whatever. And we get like a flare up of our symptoms. Also, I feel like just, a lot of us just tend to not do well with supplements, with whatever we try, it just tends to not go well, but the acupressure just sets our body into a different place, a different space of healing, supporting the body like this, rather than trying to shove our bodies with supplements or herbs or whatever it might be. Just a very gentle supporting of the body. So, the first one I want to share with you is an emotional release technique. And some of you may know EMDR. This is similar to an EMDR technique. Emotional release. Emotional release a lot of time is used for trauma patients, for medical work, trauma, like EMT workers, people that see a lot of trauma, right? And so what happens in the research that is behind this method is that those emotions get caught up in our brains and they're knotted up and we cannot undo them. They're like, we get stuck. Okay. So this emotional release technique, what it does is helps our brain to go back and forth and be able to release and let go of those emotions so that we can move forward and our bodies can heal. So what you do with this technique is you just tap on your collarbone back and forth and close your eyes while you're doing it and let your mind go wherever it needs to go. Maybe it was a car accident last week, or maybe it was, something that happened traumatic when you were a child. But you just sit with wherever your mind takes you. And a lot of times people kind of have this experience while they're doing this tapping of, it's almost like you're sitting on a train and you're seeing pictures of your life or events that happen. And sometimes the train stops and there's this event that maybe you didn't think about for a long time. You totally forgot about it. Or again, it might be something that happened just last week, a car accident or someone that was unkind to you. It might have just been, an event with someone that you love that said something unkind to you that has just gotten kind of stuck with you. I just used this again on myself last week when I had an issue with a car that I was driving, that the gas pedal got stuck. And I was like, it was a manual or stick shift car. And like I'd take it out of gear and it would just rev super high, but then I'd put it in gear and it wanted to go super fast. And I was like in traffic and there was nowhere to go because it was a construction zone. And I got home and I was just like frazzled. And all through that afternoon, I was like on high, like I could just tell my nervous system was like, and when I was getting ready to go to bed, I was still the same way. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. So I went back to my tapping and it just totally changed the way that I viewed that situation. So hope you love that. You can do that every day for a week or two or a month if you want. If you find like it's helping, obviously, try it at least a few times. Do it a few days in a row, be consistent. And that's one of my things that I often encourage people on is consistency. Consistency is key. When you're trying to do something for your health, if you just do it, once a week or whatever, you're not going to notice if that thing is helping or not helping. You have to be consistent, do it every day for 3 or 4 days at least, and then see. So that's the first technique. Okay.
Nancy, we have a couple questions. Do you want to continue a few more minutes or do you want me to read these to you?
Yeah, let me make myself a note. And yes, go ahead with the first question.
Okay. The first one is from Amy. She said, I have eyelashes fallen out on and off since 2020. Do you have any idea about this? A
lot of times hair, falling out, eyelashes, thyroid, hormonal, that could be hormonal. Sometimes your eyebrows get thin. That could definitely be a hormonal issue. And again, Amy, I don't know what you're doing for diet. I don't know. So I can't really make a recommendation as to that specific thing. But definitely, you know, starting with the eating clean piece. And again, maybe you're already doing that. Eating clean, supplementation. We can talk about supplementation a little bit as far as the things that I love. And I'm not a big supplement girl, but I have a few things that I love as far as superfood powders that I think are amazing. So we can talk about that too. Why don't we go? I'm sorry if that wasn't a very sufficient answer, but it's hard for me to make a recommendation or a call when I don't know any idea where you're at as far as your help.
I'll tell you what, Amy, do you want to come up and mute for just a moment? I've asked you to unmute if you want to elaborate a little bit on your question. Give her a second here. Okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on to Mary Kay. Amy, if you want to elaborate, go ahead and just ping Joanne or I, and we will pause and come back to you. So this one is from Mary Kay. So Mary Kay says, I don't know if this is an appropriate question. I missed a few minutes, the first few minutes of your presentation. But Mary Kay, I'm reading this because I think it's all appropriate. So I've been treating Lyme and mold illness for about 5 years. I've hit a wall and haven't seen progress in the last 18 months. Pain is still high at times, but mostly I need to lose weight and absolutely can't. My diet is extremely clean and limited. I'm weary and need help. How do I begin again with a new doc without pain, an arm and a leg to redo all that testing?
I love it. Yeah, because that's where I was. Right? Like the testing and the retesting. I would love for you all to follow me on TikTok. I just got done posting 100 days of 1-minute tips and tricks for your optimal health. And so many things on there, Mary Kay, that you are already doing, the eating clean piece, all of that. But I really, one of the things that I talk about a lot in there, and functional medicine is starting to talk about more and more too, is biofilms. So I'm going to go into biofilms a little bit. Do you guys talk about biofilms in this group? Yeah.
It's come up, yes.
Okay. So biofilms are a slimy sludge that bacteria form over the top of themselves to protect themselves in, and then they harbor parasites, yeast, bacteria, molds, fungus, all of these microbes that are in the gut. And when we're struggling and we're going around and around with these same symptoms, it's because we're not getting those microbes in place, most likely. I mean, there could be something else going on. But most likely it's that those microbes are not being in check. And those microbes need to eat too, right? So they're stealing our nutrition. Not only that, but they are part of this issue. They're part of what is causing this whole breakdown of the small intestine. The pulling apart of the lining. So addressing those biofilms is so key. So that's where I was about 8 years ago. When I'd gone through all the testing, I had gotten a lot better, but I still had this going around and around with still sometimes getting bladder infections, yeast infections, having to eat super, super, super clean. Like as long as I ate super, super clean and I couldn't eat out, couldn't go to a restaurant. As long as I stayed on that regimen, most of the time I was really pretty good. But who wants to live like that? Like I love to eat out. And I went for probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, 3 years at least, where my diet was like so restricted and so not eating out and all that stuff. And one day my sister looked at me, and this is opposite problem of some of you I know. So it's going to feel like it doesn't relate, but it does. But my sister looked at me and she said, "You look anorexic." And I was like, that was the day I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to fix my gut. And so, yes, it was addressing those biofilms, and even government research studies are showing that essential oils are often more effective than antibiotics for breaking down those biofilms and getting to the place where we can get those bacteria, those fungus, those yeast, those parasites, the molds, all that stuff back in check. So, yeah, I encourage you guys that this is something that I would definitely at least give it a try. So what I did at that time was, when I was studying with the Institute with Dr. Axe's Essential Oil Institute, as I was just researching, like, how, gut wise, how can I get my gut to stop fermenting and rotting food in the gut? Because that's basically what's happening when we have this going on, is our food is starting to ferment and rot. It's a lot of times it's not moving through very well. We have, a lot of us also have those MTHFR genetic variants that cause us to not detoxify well, not turn our food into energy very well. So I started putting together a blend that is for digestion. This is my daily digest blend. It has 14 different microbial essential, or not microbial, sorry. This one, I have a different one that is microbial. This one is more, it's turmeric, black pepper. And the thing about turmeric, black pepper, sweet herbs, bitter herbs, Helichrysum and Copaiba balsam, which are very adaptogenic herbs. Because I was super sensitive, I think that's a piece of. Some essential oils are very stimulating and not good for those of us who have a lot of sensitivities. And then other oils are very calming and very soothing and adaptogenic. So that blend stopped me from having that constant fermenting in the gut. One pump on the bottom of your feet, or actually even just a few drops, or into your navel. And it just stimulates your digestion. It helps with that enzyme production. Bitter herbs increase enzyme production, help to cleanse the liver, just help to move things better through the intestinal tract so that we can stop the fermenting that's going on and improve the digestive piece. And then the Warrior Strong blend this is the antimicrobial one. So this one has 10 different oils that are, and when you go through functional medicine, a lot of times one of the first things that they will do is a stool sample test. And one of the things that almost always they'll do the test, and then they culture it against what will kill it off. What will kill off those, whatever you got growing in there, whatever molds, funguses, yeast, whatever you have growing in your intestinal tract, what's in there and what will kill it off. And then they will use those botanicals or antibiotics or whatever it is that they decide to use. But this one has a lot of those antimicrobials, the oregano, thyme, tea tree, hyssop. And again, I use Copaiba balsam and Helichrysum. Those are very adaptogenic, so helping just the body to cope with the stress of everything else that's going on. This one is great for immune function, for sugar cravings, so any kind of infections like sinus infections, bladder infections, yeast infections. And again, don't ingest the oils, you guys. So this one, just a couple of drops, and you'd put it on your lymph glands and the front of your neck. Very supportive for thyroid as well. Thyme is a really great oil for thyroid support. So that's a great one for a lot of different things. My rescue blend is more for histamine, molds, allergies, hives, histamine, stomach upset, diarrhea. This one is great for a lot of different purposes too. I have 12 blends. I started out and I had 24. And again, I'm a very simple, my whole thing is like simple. Everything has to be simple. I am one of 16 children. And so I think it's kind of just part of my whole, grew up with a simple upbringing, simple life. And I don't like things to be complicated. So when I had the 24 blends, I was like, and then I'd have a client once in a while be like, well, I have this going on. And I'd be like, okay, well, you need this blend. And she'd be like, well, I got so many already. I don't want to buy another blend. And I was like, what blends do you have? And then she'd say, well, I have this one and this one and this one. And I'd be like, oh, well, this one is almost like this one. So just use that one. And so I got it to the point where I was like, okay, simplify, right? And so this used to be a blend that was for diarrhea. And then I had a different blend that was for like the allergies and the hives and the histamines and the headaches and all that stuff. And I was like, they were almost exactly the same anyway. So I ended up just formulating the blend to be one blend rather than two.
So we have another question that came in that might be pertinent for others.
Okay.
Regarding mast cell. So this is from Maria. So many have mast cell and essential oils set off a mast cell flare.
Okay. And again, it's looking at how are you using the oils. Ingesting, a lot of people were ingesting them for a long time, and I don't know if that was the case or not. Maybe they were just using topical, but also proper dilution, not using too much. And that was part of what drove me also to do the blends for my oil, for the blends for my clients, was because I tell them to do certain things and like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. This blend has 14 different oils in it. If you wanted to make this blend, it would cost you about $500 to buy all the different oils that go in it, because helichrysum is a super expensive one. So it just depends on what people are, how they're using them sometimes. But also I found for myself, a lot of times I just use one drop and it's already diluted for topical use. It's meant for topical use. I would never use them straight out of the bottle pure. These are all diluted, and usually like 3 to 5% dilution is what's recommended for topical use. So that's what my blends are. So that it's a very light dilution. And then if you have those Herkzheimer reactions, or you have the mast cell activation, you're sensitive, right? We're like me, like I was super sensitive to different things, like all the things that I tried in functional medicine as far as supplements, almost everything didn't work. Like I'd have cabinets full of supplements that I would use them for 3 days and man, I feel worse every time. So part of it with the oils is you can start out super light, 1 drop, just do 1 drop on your neck every day, and then build up to a few drops a day. The recommended dose is up to 5 drops, but you can start with 1 drop. And typically, if you start out light like that, you wouldn't have the Herkzheimer reaction. Other things that you can do for Herkzheimer reaction, or those mast histamine reactions, any kind of sensitivity where you're trying to do what you think is going to work and it's not working, it's making you worse. Couple of things that you can do. 1, the acupressure. Okay, that technique. A lot of times our stuff is emotionally seated, and I have some other techniques that I can show you also. I would love to. So the acupressure piece is so key, and I'll show you those other methods. Castor oil packs are often really helpful. Do you guys talk about castor oil packs in this group?
Yeah, it has been mentioned by some of the other practitioners, so yes.
Okay. So castor oil pack, my way of doing that, because it's kind of messy and it's, a lot of people don't want to do it because it's messy. I just tell people, keep that bottle of castor oil in your shower, take a tablespoon of it on your hand and rub your abdomen and the, like where your liver is on your right side, and put that castor oil on right when you get in the shower. Oil and water do not mix. So the water will help to drive that castor oil in. And while you're taking your shower, that hot shower, what the castor oil does is helps to open up your detox pathways so that you are, you're able to detoxify better with the castor oil packs. Sometimes psyllium husk can be a really good one also. And that's just a fiber. It's like, it's what Metamucil is, only without all the garbage that's in Metamucil, no sugar, no food colorings and all that stuff. So just organic psyllium husk is another really good supplement for helping with detox, okay, and histamine. And part of what that histamine, that high histamine is, because we're not digesting well, we've got this fermenting going on in the gut. It causes us to have high histamine. Part of the thing with the essential oil, going back to that question again, is what essential oils were being used that caused the issue with more mass histamine. So I would be curious to know that, I guess, what oils were you using? Because certain oils, it'd be good to start with certain ones rather than others. And sometimes too, because everyone is bio-individual, where we're at, it might be different for you. Like the ones that I talked about here, the rescue would be typically what I would recommend for mass histamine, that high histamine. So that might be where you start, but if you do a drop of that and you do it for a couple of days and it really doesn't seem like the right thing, you might switch and go with the Daily Digest. The Daily Digest one has basil in it, which is really good for histamine also, but it's a totally different oil than like the peppermint and the lemon that is in the rescue blend. This one is more like basil and cilantro. Cilantro is a really good heavy metal detoxifier. So a lot of times we have a lot of heavy metal issues going on also. And those are hard to detect. They're hard to a lot of times diagnose because it's not in the urine. It's not coming out. It's like stuck in our bodies. So looking at if we have mercury fillings, but even the air that we breathe, pollution is high in mercury now. And so sleeping with a high quality air purifier in your bedroom can be something that is helpful. And again, that is part of what I talk about on my Eat to Live lifestyle sheet. On the bottom part there is just those other lifestyle factors that we want to look at too. Clean body care products, getting rid of the fragrances, the perfumes. And guys, that can take a good long while to figure all those pieces out and to clean up. I feel like I thought that I cleaned up all my body care routine and stuff for a couple of, maybe probably like 3 years. And then I realized I was using the Dr. Bronner's soap in the shower, which Dr. Bronner's is like really a pretty clean product, very minimal, very minimal. But I was using the almond one, which had fragrance. It was fragrance. And I was like, how did I not know this? And so I cut it out, but then I went on a trip and I had a bottle in my travel case and I used it like 6 months later. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so strong. So cleaning up your body care routine even, and that can cause histamine issues as well. So all the little pieces add up. And sometimes it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And that's why I always tell people, start where you are, start with wherever you're ready. And some people are ready to do a lot, and that's awesome. If you're ready to do a lot, do a lot, make a lot of changes. But if you're not, then start where you're at and think about like, what does motivate you? Maybe the acupressure motivates you. Maybe maybe the oils motivate you. Maybe, and I love too about the oils, like that Warrior Strong that I was talking about, so good for sugar cravings. So, if you're craving sugar and having a hard time with that piece, that one is really good for that, along with the Daily Digest. Those two together, so good. I want to share another acupressure thing that
Nancy, before we go there, we have one other question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So this is from Gary. He wants to know, do you find LDN is helpful for a myriad of issues?
I'm sorry.
Do you find LDN is helpful for a myriad of issues?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Hey, Gary, do you want to expand? You're welcome to come off mute.
Yeah, I've been diagnosed with Lyme. I went to Stephen Harris in California, came back with a PICC line and did IV infusions on my own here in Denver for 2.5 months and didn't see much improvement. So now he's prescribed low dose naltrexone. And
Okay.
I've read about it, and I've read that a lot of people have been helped with all kinds of issues, inflammation, detoxification. So I didn't know if it was something maybe you use or have experience with.
I don't have experience with that, but again, if it's something that you're led to and feel like it's something that you want to try, I'd say try it.
Hey, Mary Kay, sorry to interrupt you, Gary, but Mary Kay says that she takes LDN. Mary Kay, is there anything you want to share with Gary about the LDN?
Yeah, I've been on LDN for probably 4 of the 5 years that I've been treating Lyme and mold illness. I think it makes a huge difference. I'm kind of at the point right now that I'm not sure what's working and what's not working, but I continue to take the 4.5 milligrams. I did work up to the 4.5, and back in the day, I found it very, very, very helpful when I started taking it. In addition, I had to do some other things, but I was taking it mostly for pain.
Yeah, I'm still in titration period, so I'm 3 weeks in and I'm at 3.0 right now, so I haven't quite made it up to 4.5, but yeah, I got a little ways to go before I probably can tell if it's going to be helpful or not.
Yeah, I wish I could give it a more glowing review, but I haven't stopped it long term to find out if it's helpful. So
yeah, and it's probably like
yeah.
anything else. It works for some people and doesn't work for others. But
Yeah. Thank you, Mary Kay, for chiming in. And then Gary, just one other thing. Diane had just noted that for her, it caused insomnia. So that was one thing to note from her.
okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right, Nancy, back over to you.
All right. So along those same notes, just when you try implementing new things, always try one new thing at a time. Don't try, 2 or 3 things on the same day, because then you don't know what worked and what didn't. Try to give things at least a couple of days before you move on to the next thing. And another thing I always tell people, if you're not sure if something is working for you or not working for you, after you've used it for a while, a good protocol to use is stop it for 3 days and then take it again for a couple of days, and your body will pretty quickly tell you. And sometimes it doesn't even take 3 days. Part of my 2 things that I love and that I take and that I feel like help me so much with my energy, with my sleep, with my pain, with not getting infections a lot. Reishi mushroom powder. Reishi mushroom is the #1 used botanical in Chinese medicine. Been used for 2,000 or 3,000 years for pretty much supportive for pretty much everything about health. If you look at medicinal mushrooms, certain mushrooms are good for certain things. Lion's mane is really good for cognitive support, neurological issues. It's very adaptogenic. Other mushrooms are more stimulating. Cordyceps is good for energy, vitality, but it is pretty stimulating. I couldn't take that one. Turkey tail can be pretty stimulating, but it's really good for immune system. So reishi mushroom, again, #1 used botanical in Chinese medicine for thousands of years. And I think the reason why it is what it is for that culture is that it's good for everything, and it's very adaptogenic. And again, sometimes I have people that try it and it doesn't work for them. It stimulates or whatever, but very, very rarely. It's a very adaptogenic herb, or not herb, it's a botanical. But when you look at these charts of what different mushrooms do, the reishi supports everything. And the main thing I think is that it's supportive for gut health. But it's supportive for cognitive health, heart health, immune support, all these different things. So I buy it in a big bag and I keep it in a jar, and I keep my spoon in the jar. So every morning it's on my kitchen counter, and pop the lid off of the jar, take my ½ teaspoon, put it in my coffee mug, and I add hot water. That's traditionally how it would be used. And I drink it like it's tea. My husband takes his and he puts it in a little shot glass with just a little bit of water and chugs it down like it's a shot. It does not taste great. There's a lot of companies right now that are making it into like a coffee drink or a coffee alternative. Mud water, you've probably seen. Stomatic 4. There's a lot of companies that are doing mushrooms, and they're doing a lot of different ones into blends. But again, sometimes some of them are very stimulating. So I think for those of us, and I always think, those of us who have all these things going on, trying a lot of different things at once is not a great idea. So I would recommend starting with that reishi and just see if that works for you all. I notice by noon if I didn't take my little blend. The other thing that is in my blend is maca. Maca is a root indigenous of Peru, and it also been used for 2,000 or 3,000 years by the Peruvian people. Pretty much all the men and women in Peru take maca. Maca is good for bone density, for energy, vitality, fertility, which many of us are past that. But the Peruvian people take it even like when they're in their 80s or 90s. It's not necessarily for fertility, but it helps with all those hormonal issues, the bone density, the energy, vitality, sleep, all those different pieces. And it is very adaptogenic also. And again, sometimes it's not the right thing for somebody. Every once in a great while, I have a client who comes back and say, no, the maca didn't work. And I'm like, well, shoot. Ashwagandha is another herb that is very adaptogenic. And sometimes if the maca doesn't go well for people, I'll suggest ashwagandha. So that's another one that can be really helpful for the energy and the adrenal fatigue and all those kinds of things that people sometimes are struggling with. So I went off on a tangent there, guys. So the next thing that I was going to talk about was the acupressure piece for desensitizing. So if you're having a lot of food sensitivities, you're having Herkzheimer reaction, you're having the histamine, the mass histamine issues, what you can do is take a glass jar and fill it with food, stuff that you're sensitive to, stuff that you shouldn't be eating, stuff that you used to eat. Put your supplements in there, herbs, take, if you're trying to do essential oils, put a few pumps of your essential oil in that jar. And this is a technique that a lot of acupuncturists, chiropractors, there's machines that do some of this as well, but it just helps to calm your immune system, calm your nervous system from being so hyper vigilant. So you take that jar, fill it with the food, place it on your abdomen. Whoop, I'm going to just turn that down. And I always use, I thought I brought in here, a heavy magnet, because the magnet intensifies what we're doing with the acupressure. So I take those two things, and you probably want to do this like either sitting in a chair or lying down in bed. Okay. So you'd have those two things, and it's going to be a little bit hard for me to do this while I'm sitting here. But get in the better backup place here. So you have these two things sitting on you, and then you're going to go center of the forehead with one hand and bottom of the foot with the other hand. And you tap for about 2 minutes. And then after those 2 minutes, you're going to go to the top of your head, top of the head, again, keeping the other hand still on your bottom of your foot. And you can do this however is comfortable. Some people are like, I can't reach those two things. But if you lay down and you bend your knee up, you should be able to reach it just fine. So top of the forehead, or sorry, top of the head. And then the third point is the back corner of the head. And again, still going on the bottom of the foot, and about 2 minutes on each of those three spots. And then you're going to switch feet and do the same thing. Center of the forehead, top of the head, back corner of the head. And with those on, setting on your abdomen. And when I was having food sensitivity tests run, and my functional medicine doctor said, you will never be able to eat those foods. And I had so many foods on my panel that was coming back. Broccoli, avocados, strawberries, almonds. I mean, it was ridiculous how many foods. And I had already cut out dairy. I'd cut out gluten. I'd cut out all grains. I wasn't eating any grains. But she was telling me I would never eat any of those foods again. Guys, I eat almost all of those foods. Pretty much all of those foods. I mean, I still, I don't eat junk. So I don't eat processed grains that are just in, crackers or whatever, stuff like that. But I eat the Ezekiel bread, which is totally gluten. But it's not the same because it's sprouted. When you eat a sprouted or a fermented grain, whether it's overnight oats or it's like a sourdough bread or like the Ezekiel bread, that is the way that traditional cultures ate grains. They didn't do this processed stuff that we do today. They were careful about, properly preparing those grains. That sourdoughing process, that sprouting process helps to break down the phytates, the lectins, the things in the grains, even the gluten, that make the grains really hard to digest. And I think that's why so many practitioners today are saying, you have to be paleo. You don't eat grains. Grains are bad. It's not that the grains are bad. It's the way that we're doing them. It's so much of what the processing of the foods that we're doing in the United States today that is causing all of these food sensitivities and issues that people have going on. So, and all that again relates to the Lyme, the bacterias, the molds, the fungus, the parasites, the stuff that we have going on in the gut, getting that gut in a better place so that we're not fermenting the food in our gut, that we're digesting better, we're moving things out, we're moving out the toxins. Those bacteria, those fungus, yeast, molds, parasites can live in harmony when there's balance. And for me, the acupressure was a big piece. I have some other techniques that I could show you guys, but rather than showing you, let me tell you, I'm on TikTok. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, but I launch my videos from TikTok, so that's the best place just because I always post them all there. I usually post them to Instagram and Facebook also. So if you want to follow me on those other places, but on my TikTok account, or you go to the other ones, tip number 140 is that acupressure technique with the emotional release. And then tip number like 143, I think it is, I talk about the food desensitizing, which I like is so good. Like, I don't think that I would have gotten through all my stuff without doing the acupressure. So there's the food sensitivity one. And then there's one that I show that I talk about rolling out inflammation. And it's using a hard plastic cup, and it's just massaging through the tenderness that we have in our abdomen and breaking up that tightness and those facial tissues that are inflamed, and just kind of supporting the gut, working out that inflammation. Because when there's tenderness and tightness in there, that inflammation is part of what we have going on. So I call myself on TikTok the Good Gut Girl. So if you look for me on TikTok, search in the Good Gut Girl, and then on Instagram.
Nancy, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
And I was thinking the same thing, and the question just came in. How do we find you? How does folks find you on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok? Is it under New Day Whole Health, or how would they find you?
On Facebook and Instagram, it's New Day Whole Health. And then on TikTok, I'm the Good Gut Girl.
The Good Gut Girl. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just been a lot of fun. I've been doing that for about 5 months, and I have like 12,000 followers and tons of people asking questions and tons of, interaction, I guess, with people asking questions and commenting and, oh, I've had that too, or thank you so much, or whatever it might be. And I'm to the point now where I did 100 days of 1-minute tips and tricks for your optimal health. So that's a really great place for y'all to start. If you, especially if you're not eating clean, that's a really good place to start, just to help you get your head around, like, how can you use food as medicine? Because food is medicine. And, just knowing about probiotic foods, enzyme rich foods, what kind of fibers, and changing up your fiber, like not focusing on one kind of fiber, but diversifying the fibers that you take, because different kinds of fiber feed different strains of good bacteria in the gut. So it's really important to diversify the fibers that you take through food, and psyllium husk is always a good one to kind of start with to move things through. And again, some people react to that and that doesn't go well. So if you react to certain things, back up and, don't get frustrated. Like, I know it can be frustrating, but you'll get there. Sometimes it's a lot of trial and error, and that can be not great fun, but you guys, it can be better. We can be so much better.
And Nancy, if people want to schedule with you, do they go to your website? Because I know you do see clients.
I do. Yes, you can go on the contact page of my website, newdaywholehealth.com, and you can schedule on there. It's $45 for a 25-minute consultation. I purposefully don't do a big long consultation to start with. And it's kind of not my thing. Like, I really want to empower people to have the tools. Again, so much free information on my website, all these free videos. It's basically, those 100 days are basically like my health coaching program. It's the things that I have told people over and over and over for 10 years, for more than 10 years, all in one little spot where people can just go through and watch those and they're 1 minute. Most of them are 1 minute long, especially at the beginning. Some of the later ones got to be longer, but just little 1 minute tips of like, here's foods that are probiotic. And here's why you should eat probiotic foods. And the next video is here's foods that are, rich in fiber. Here's what mineral deficiencies cause, and here's how to make sure you're getting enough minerals, and talk about magnesium and all the different things that can be really supportive using food as medicine. Good food is good medicine. I truly believe that. Again, I'm not a huge fan of supplements. One thing that I do a lot of times recommend for people is this Garden of Life protein shake. I used to have a different one that I recommended, and it just got to be really expensive. And I was like, okay, I gotta find a different. And I've always loved this company. This company got bought out, I don't know how long ago, by not a great company, which is really disappointing, because the man who started this company almost died of Crohn's disease in the 1990s. His name was Jordan Rubin. And just a really neat story about how he got his life back using food as medicine and using a probiotic soil-based supplement. And then he started this Garden of Life company. And I use that product. I use some of their like the multivitamin, and I think it was primarily the multivitamin and the magnesium when I was really sick, and it worked really well for me. And then I went down that path of doing all the supplements with functional medicine, and I feel like those supplements just made me worse. And hugely, I think, because so many supplements are synthetically made, they're not food. They're made in a lab. Our bodies aren't really so much meant for synthetically made things. So anyway, I do love that meal replacement. And part of what I love about it is it has probiotics, enzymes, and basically a multivitamin that's superfood, 44 superfoods. And I think a lot of times people do need that extra supplementation of the probiotics and the enzymes, especially when they're starting out. Sometimes people react to the probiotics. Again, getting that gut bacteria in check. I think the essential oils can be really helpful with that if you're having a lot of those food sensitivities. So, yeah. All right.
Does anybody have any other questions for Nancy? Nothing so far. Nancy, do you have anything else, or?
I don't think so. Joanne, you've been to one of my cooking demos?
Not to your cooking. I saw you at Renew.
Oh, it was at Renew.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've done your stuff, which I think is great because, and I'll just share a little bit just for a second. I do have the mast cell. I'm very sensitive, and I didn't react to your stuff actually.
Okay,
I was skeptical at first. I thought, oh, I'm going to react because I know essential oils are very powerful.
Yeah.
But for me, the way you told me to start it and how I did it, it worked really, really good because my stomach is a lot better than it used to be, quite honestly. I mean, I had a bout of food poisoning recently, so I probably have to talk to you again about that. But
yeah. And I think that's probably the best testimony, because I as I'm talking about all this stuff, I'm like, I don't want to sell you something. Like, that is not my that is not my gig. My passion is for people to be well. And I think hugely for me, having lost my mom when I was 10, my younger brothers were 2, 4, 6, and 8. She was 47 years old. And I just think that shouldn't happen, you know? It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't have happened. And if she knew what I know, I think she would have had a longer, healthier life. If she would have known about Wonder Bread that we grew up on, if she would have known about milk, like, we were a big dairy family. You know, if she would have known some of the things that I know, I think she would have had a longer, healthier life. And it makes me sad that she didn't see my kids. She didn't get to see my grandkids. And people, that shouldn't be our destiny. And when people struggle with their health the way that I struggled with my health for most of my life, especially from the age of 20 to 40. Man, I was just so sick, like to the point where I did not want to live anymore. And my life is so different now. And I guess that's the message that I just want to share with people. And I think there are so many things that we can try and so many things that can be helpful. And we're all on a journey, and, you know, you try different things, right? And it might work, it might not. And, you know, when things don't work, it's hard. I did find that the acupressure, especially that desensitizing, when I was trying different supplements and things, I was so thankful for it, because if I got in a place where I tried to take a supplement and it didn't agree with me, I knew that I could do the desensitizing and calm my immune system and my nervous system back down so that I would be able to sleep again, so that I'd get back in a better pattern or whatever it was. And if I hadn't had that acupressure technique, I don't know that I would have been so bold to try and move forward the way that I did. So I hope that you find that helpful. I hope you find so many things that I talked about helpful. Follow me on social media, you guys, and I would love to be part of your, you know, just I'm shooting out pretty much every day a 1 minute, like whatever. And some, now that I'm done with my 100 days of tips and tricks, it's gotten a lot more fun. Like I'm posting some really like fun and cute. I did one the other day. It was before I became a health coach, I would just pray for my food. And I held up a Cheeto and I said, Lord, please turn this Cheeto into a carrot on its way down. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. So I, you know, at the end of the video, I'm throwing the Cheetos, the bag of Cheetos into the trash can, but just trying to make it a little bit more fun now. And I'm doing Q&A also on there. So answering questions for people, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'd love to be part of your health journey. And thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you very much, Nancy, for joining us. And if anybody doesn't have any other questions, have a wonderful Sunday and the rest of your weekend.
All right.
Talking on mute. I love that. Really quick before we close, I do want to just thank everybody and also say that I will be posting this recording on Meetup. So this will be out there. And then we have our next event next month. So look at the Meetup for the details on that. I do not have the date right in front of my head, so I apologize.
I believe it's October 18th.
Thank you. Thank you. I completely drew a blank.
I think so.
Yeah, that is it. You are right. So, so yeah, I know we had a little bit of a break over the summer, but we are in our regular cadence now. So anyway, thank you, everybody. We'll see you on Facebook, see you on Meetup, and thank you for your time today. Thank you, Nancy, very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.